Hi everybody, my name is Jason Fabok, and on today's episode we're going to take a look at the brand new DC Essentials Batman action figure from DC Collectibles. Now this figure is based off of my designs and was sculpted by my good buddy Paul Harding, and today we're going to take a little bit of a look at the sketches and tell a little bit of the backstory behind creating this figure. But I also like to talk about a specific action figure from the past that really influenced me and helped me get to where I am today. So if you're ready, let's take a look. Alright guys, so here we are, we're in my office and we're going to take a look today at this brand new Batman action figure from DC Collectibles. It's part of the DC Essentials line of figures that is hitting store shelves very soon, might already be out by the time you're watching this video. What I wanted to kind of do here is go back in time. Let's go back in time. Batman has always been a very special character for me. I've loved this character for years, but where was the starting point? I was thinking about this the other day. Where was the starting point of where I really fell in love with Batman and the character of Batman? We have to go back to around the year 1991, 1992, maybe even a little bit before that. I remember seeing the Batman 66 TV show and really enjoyed that. The old Batman 66 movie, I remember having that taped off of TV on a VHS tape, and I remember watching that quite a lot. But it wasn't until Batman 89 that Batman really clicked for me, and he became my favorite character. How did I get introduced to that movie? Well, I got introduced to that movie through an action figure. This is the wall scaler Batman. It's part of the Dark Knight collection from Kenner. And the story behind this is that I believe it was for Christmas, my aunt and uncle got me the Batman Batwing from Batman 89, the big toy. And I remember it was in this big gold box. It was awesome, and I remember opening up and just being blown away, but it didn't come with an action figure. And I hadn't seen the movie. My parents probably wouldn't have let me watch it. It was a pretty dark movie for that time in that era. And I remember I was kind of bummed out I didn't have an action figure. And so my mom, the next day, she went into work, and she worked up in Windsor, Ontario, and she went to a Toys R Us there and picked up this action figure for me. And so this was the first Batman figure I ever owned. This figure was awesome. It's still one of my favorite action figures. So this action figure, I think, was the catalyst to really get me into Batman. And ever since then, I've been a massive Batman fan, and I've always loved him as a character. He's my favorite character. He's the coolest looking superhero. And so fast forward now from 1992 all the way to 2018, and we have this. We have the new DC Essentials Batman figure that I got to design. And I have to say, it's very surreal to actually be holding something like this in my hands that I had a part in. As I mentioned, it was sculpted by Paul Harding, my good buddy, and he's such an amazing 3D sculptor. And he's done so many great action figures for DC Collectibles. And he designed the whole first run of these action figures for the DC Essentials line. Now, if you'd like to see a little bit more of a behind-the-scenes look at the whole creation of the action figure line, check out my last video, Making of an Action Figure, where I detail the whole process of going from a sketch to a prototype to a finished action figure on the shelves. You can check that out on my channel. But for this figure here, let's just take a look at some of the designs and the process behind it and give a little bit of a spotlight on it. So we started off with the buck body, which is essentially just a neutral body. And then I gave my designs that I had drawn. I had used the buck template and then drew the different parts that would make up Batman's action figure over that template digitally. And then Paul took that design and he sculpted the head, and he sculpted the arm piece here, the gauntlets and the hands, the boots, the belt, and the cape on the back as well. So those were all the original pieces that Paul designed, for this figure. And as I mentioned in the last video as well, this figure reuses a lot of parts from the other figures as well, from the buck body. And so the legs, the arms, the torso, they are all reused assets. And action figure companies do that quite a lot in order to cut down on costs. If you look through, a number of different action figures over the years that DC Collectibles has done, that's just something that they do. It's something that a lot of action figure companies do. Now I also have the box here. Let's take a look at that really quickly. So here is the DC Essentials box that you're going to see on the store shelves. One thing I always loved about DC Collectibles is the simplicity of the packaging that they have. It always jumps out at you when you're in the store and you're looking at these figures on the shelf. This one is figure number 1 in the series. As you can see, they use some bluish gray to really tie in with the figure itself. And on the back, we have a little description and the really cool gold 20 years of DC Collectibles print there on the box. Beautiful design. Really happy with the look of the boxes, and I think they did a great job on it, just like they did on the figure. Now there's one other Batman action figure that had a big influence on me growing up as well, and it was this one here. This is the Batman Hush action figure by Jim Lee, and this is an important figure not only to me but also to DC Collectibles. At the time they were called DC Direct. They were starting getting into action figures, and this was one of the ones that they had produced. And I remember reading Batman Hush. I remember being so blown away by that book. But when I read that book, I knew what I wanted to do with my life. I knew I wanted to draw comics. That book was just so powerful. Jim's art just, spoke to me, just like it's spoken to many of you out there. And I knew the kind of style and the kind of drawing that I wanted to do myself after reading that book. So I remember going out to Cartoon Kingdom in Windsor, Ontario, and I remember buying this action figure. At that time they were in the mall, and I remember buying this figure. It's the only one I bought from that series. I ended up buying the Superman one years later, but this one here was the one that I bought at that time, and I love it. It's just so great. I love how it came with the grapple gun, interchangeable arm, and this awesome base that was based on the logo that you saw on the book. I love it when DC Collectibles does little bases like this and really makes it a little bit more special. But a great action figure, and it's something that I've always cherished and I've always had, and I'll always have. And it's something that has led up to me being able to design this and have my little part in DC Collectibles history. And so from this little Kenner action figure here, all the way to the figure that I got to design, I'm very thankful for the opportunities that I've had, and it's very surreal to see my work come to life in 3D form like this. In future videos, we're going to take a look at some of the other action figures in the line: the Flash, Deathstroke, Reverse Flash, and hopefully we'll also spotlight some of the future action figures that are coming out with this series of figures, and give you guys a little look into that as well. So I hope you liked the video, and we'll see you next time.